All right. In your brother's book, he uses Abraham as an example of a proper hosting of angels that lead to the birth of Isaac. As a counterexample as a counter to this example, he uses the story of Manoah and his wife as an improper hosting of an angel that leads to the birth of Samson. Looking through both of the stories, I don't seem to find what exactly Manoah and his wife did wrong. Manoah does not seem to recognize that the angel is one of God at first, but eventually he does. So I presume that alone is significant enough to lead to the downfall of their son. In addition, is there significance that Samson is not compared to or identified as a Nephilim, despite his similarities to them, the product of an improper relationship with angels, raw power and strength, etc.? Thank you for any insight into the story. Your videos on symbolism and principalities finally broke the last barrier that was keeping me back from grasping what a lot of these old stories were talking about. Well, thank you, Jason. That's very kind of you. So, first thing I can say to Jason is you're looking in the right places. If you want to know where the let's say the deepest nuggets are in my brother's book, they're always in the footnotes. And so in the book, Matir, in a footnote, talks about how Manoah and his wife improperly hosted angels. Now, I think that one of the things you maybe didn't get right is that he doesn't say that they did something wrong. That's not really the point. He says that they were not accepted as proper hosts, because what happens is Manoah offers food to the angel, but the angel refuses the food. And this is the difference between Manoah and Abraham, is that by giving food to the angels in the story of Abraham, he hosts angels. He becomes the proper host for angels, and that is what brings about his son. Now, in this story, when he offers to give food to the angels refuse, and the angel says, you should give your offering up to the Lord. So take the food and then offer it up to the Lord. And as they're offering up the food up to the Lord, the angel disappears into the flame and goes up. And so it has something to do with, I talked about this idea of the bird which comes down and picks something, the predator bird which comes down and picks something up, and there's something of that happening in that story. It's like the angel is not, it's like you can imagine, like the feet of the angels are not let to touch the ground. The angel comes down but doesn't touch the ground. There's a separation which remains, and the angel is taken up. And that is what makes Samson into more body than spirit. Samson is more body than spirit, you could say. And so when you ask your question, it's like that you compare him to the Nephilim, you're right. You're totally right. This is the right questions to be asking. There are some church fathers that talk about how Samson is one of the closest to Christ. And there's also the biggest question is asking, why is Christ not seen like a Nephilim? That's the biggest question. Like Samson as well. Samson is like a prefiguration of Christ, because he's bringing things together, and he's doing it in an improper way. And so that's why he's not Christ, of course, but he's bringing things together, and it's kind of awkward. He takes the door, he takes the door of the city and brings it up to the top of the mountain. He takes the margin, brings it up to the top of the mountain. When I talk about things like the crown of thorns, or I talk about this type of imagery that Christ engages with, this is something that you see in the story of Samson. He marries the foreign woman, just like Christ marries, or gives the story of him marrying the Samaritan woman in his story. And also Samson, he he finds the honey in the impure, right? He finds wisdom in the dead carcass of the lion. And so, right, that is Christianity. That's what Christianity is. Christianity is finding the fish in the fish in the deep, is finding wisdom in these dead, foreign nations. That is what Christianity is. And so Samson comes really close. And so in a way, there is something of a relationship with something like the Nephilim to a certain extent. And so once you understand that that's one of the problems being posed, you can also understand all the 4th century of Christianity. If you need, this is the key to the 4th century. If you want to understand why the church fathers just fought so much to talk about the nature of Christ, and that the fact that he is fully man, fully God, 2 natures, unmixed, fully united, fully separate without being mixed, all this type of language where they want to show that Christ has 2 natures which are fully united in his person but are not confused. That is them trying to help us understand why Christ is not a giant, why Christ is not the mixture of heaven and earth. He's not the mixture. He's the full, complete union, which preserves also its separateness at the same time. That's the difference between synthesis and confusion. And this is something, seriously, the difference between synthesis and confusion, if people could just understand that right now, the difference between synthesis and confusion, so much of our problems would fly apart, like would just vanish. When you see someone who talks about Christ as being the first, kind of transsexual person, because he transcends male and female, he joins them together in his person, that is not seeing the difference between transcendence and confusion, or synthesis and confusion.